I will have to stay here. Okay, anyway, I think we can maybe wait a bit more. If we can, we will have 2 hours, so I think, and we have six presentations, sorry. We have 5 in the program, but we have a bonus track, which was not in the printed program, but we will have it anyway, after those you see in the program. So let's wait just 4 or 5 minutes, maybe a bit less, and then try to get people in, and we will start, okay? Okay, I think we will start now, and hopefully people will come with the coffees and will join us very soon. I don't know if to put myself here to avoid. No, okay. So, good afternoon, everybody. Well, if you haven't been to the first session of crowdsourcing citizen science presentations this morning, I would like then to introduce myself again because I was chairing that session and chairing again this session. My name is José Miguel Rubio Iglesias. I'm working at the European Commission, the Research Innovation, on secondment by the National Geographic Institute of Spain. I'm very glad to introduce today 5 projects. We'll have 6 presentations, but we'll have actually 5 projects, which will be about, as the title of the session indicates, crowdsourcing citizen science and volunteer geographic information. Out of the 5 projects, or 6 projects, I lost the count, we will speak also a lot about citizens observatories. In the previous sessions, we had a very nice presentation in which Uta Venn from UNESCO defined or gave a definition of what a citizens observatory is. I don't think there is still a real definition on what is a citizen observatory. I would say that it's a sort of a flavor of citizen science activity. From the definitions I have found, there are some common concepts that I would like to stress before giving the floor to you. Don't worry, you will have your 15 minutes. There is one element. It's about community and sharing, which is about sharing. We are in the right forum, Inspire, which is about sharing information, sharing data. But when we speak about community, we have to stress that citizen observatories are about citizens, of course, first and foremost. It's about public authorities as well, and it's about those who bridge the gap between citizens and public authorities, let's say data managers, scientists, researchers, and the like. The European Union has been supporting this concept as well as other VGI and crowdsourcing activities because we believe in the potential of these activities to fill in the in situ observation, in situ gaps, or in situ observation gaps that exist with the official authoritative data sources, harnessing and building on the potential and the power of the new ICT technologies and the societal changes that these new ICT technologies have bring with them. So having made this clarification, because you will hear a lot about citizen observatories, I would like now to give the floor to Christian Aden from the University of Oldenburg, who will tell us about an Inspire compliant open source software which enables modular administration of environmental monitoring projects for citizens in the field of species distribution. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you for the introduction. With my presentation, I want to give you some background information about species data collection in Lower Saxony. It's a federal state in the northwest of Germany. And there we have some problems. We have a big gap between single species observations and also data collection databases and the production of species distribution maps, which are standardized, like Inspire species distribution maps. So we started a bottom-up approach. But at first, I want to introduce you into the data collection and the field work. Who's collecting the data? We have, on the one hand, public authorities, which have a need in data. They need data about indicator species, about red list species, which they need for fulfilling duties to report, for example, the Birds Directive, FFH Directive, and some others. So, and mainly they are collecting data in protected areas. On the other hand, we have the NGOs, which consist of two parts nowadays. In former times we called them volunteers. Today we call them citizen scientists. So in Germany we have there are some differences. So we call them citizen science light for the new citizen scientists, which have fun to use apps or on their smartphones. On the other hand, we have the real volunteers. We call them citizen scientists proper in this way. And so we have the NGOs which like to collect data about many species, not only red list species and indicator species, and we have the citizen science light people which collect data about well-known species, for example, on the Sunday in the forest. So nowadays we have different data flows. In Lower Saxony, we have three different methods, but we don't have a real standard. What the public authorities are providing are analog report sheets, which can be filled in the field by citizen scientists, for example, and then they can send them back to the public authority, and the authorities are working with this data. On the other hand, we have the NGOs which are using specific software, and also biologists are using specific software on their laptops, and we have some apps which were developed by NGOs and geoinformatics and so on. We then are collecting data in a digital way, but there's no connection or no interface to the public authorities. And there's no acceptance for digital data from NGOs. So they want to have these analog report sheets maybe also in the future. So there are many concerns of involved volunteers, of the NGOs. They don't know what happens with supplied analog data. There's no feedback by the authorities. There are no species distribution atlases produced in a permanent way, and there's no real provision of data. We know a little bit about our laws, and we have the Environmental Information Act, we have the Spatial Data Access Act, and the public authorities have to provide species distribution maps. But on the other hand, when there are no digital data about species distribution, they cannot be transformed or be provided by the public authorities. So our objectives are the provision of data of a data flow from NGOs into the INSPIRE data specification, and we wanted to develop modules for web-based geographical content management system. It's called Hotspot. You will see a little bit more about. We'll get a little bit more about information about this in some minutes. So we want the public authorities to manage their own surveys, to create questionnaires which can be published on the web. We want them to publish web apps. The idea is a little bit to have something like a corporate design and so on for different species, for example. And we want to connect, to create a connection between some apps we developed some years before, where all the parameters of the public authorities are included, which you can find on the report sheets you can download. And we wanted to connect them with our survey databases. And then we want to provide tools inside the web-based system, which allows NGOs to map and transform data from their own collections into the Inspire standard. Yeah, and in the end, we want to provide a view and a download service. So the methods we make use of were typical software engineering methods, traditional waterfall approach, and but also agile methods. I don't want to go into the details, but the most important for us with this presentation is the scheme mapping. So we analyzed data from our apps we produced and the application scheme of the Inspire topic species distribution. And yeah, then we wanted to create transformation rules, and was a little bit difficult, but you can see it in a minute. Yeah, and for the development of the modules, the module called Go Inspired, we used a new approach. It's a UML-based web engineering. So we created, or we developed use cases together with the NGOs. And then we prepared some content navigation, presentation, and process models for us as developers. So the results of the mapping was not really successful because with Adini, with our apps, we are collecting raw data, and so from the field. So and with the Inspire species distribution specification, we want to have distribution maps. So for example, with a grid or other polygons, for example. So what we could do were, or the data sources we found were on the one hand our observation database, so we can find the species names, the local IDs, and the counting methods. But we included some species infos into the apps, and we can find some information about the sensitive info and occurrence categories. And yeah, some transformations and calculations are possible. So the dates about the collected from or collected to, and the population size, the domain extent, and the geometries can be transformed or calculated. And we get some reference species ID and name from web services, for example, EU nomen, and other attributes had to be filled into forms or selected from lists and so on. This is the geographical content management system hotspot. It consists of open source tools like PostgreSQL, Postgres, the UML map server, and so on, well-known products. And we developed some modules, for example, for spatial data management, a map file editor, which run better than others, some analysis tools, and so on. And we developed the survey management tool and the module Go Inspired. So to get an idea of the survey management, I have some pictures. On the one hand, you can create a questionnaire with, for example, given answers and attributes with measuring units and so on. And if you finish creating a questionnaire, then you have to press the buttons to get a web app and a website with a collection tool. So these are the results. On the one hand, we have the app, and on the other hand, we have a web form and a map where the location can be placed somewhere in the map, and the form can be filled in. Then all the data collectors and volunteers are able to evaluate data of other people. On the one hand, we have an expert evaluation. On the other hand, we have a crowd evaluation, and that's what. And if we want to go inspired with our data, then at first we have to insert some data set info, the name and the lifespan, and we have to upload a data set with a grid data set, for example. In the second step, we have to select survey data, the survey database, and the species name attribute from the database. And in the third step, we have to upload and insert and select species info, some attributes from the data specification. And then we have to insert the source information about the institution, the address, and method info, and so on. Then in the fifth step, we have to select the data control methods. We have experts, crowds, species distribution modeling with R and working as a web processing service, OGC based. And we have known habitats as a spatial data set, and we have times of occurrences. The sixth step is to select matching attributes. On the one hand, we have the inspire attributes, which can be transformed. On the other hand, we have attributes from the apps and the web forms, and you can select the matching attributes. So if there are matching attributes. The seventh step is to select the species you want to map. You have to insert the missing attributes by hand into web forms, and then you have to decide whether you want to produce a predefined data set or if you want to produce a web feature services or something like that. So we want to produce predefined data sets. And if you press the start button in the end, after the process is running, runs through all the methods, the transformation rules, and so on, you will get some links about for the GML data set, which you can download. I have two data sets, one Inspire compliant, the other one is QGIS compliant, but with the same attributes and so on. The Inspire data set is not really working with all the attributes in QGIS. Together with a style layer descriptor data set, which you can use in QGIS, for example. And on the other hand, we are providing two links for the Atom feed for the download service, which you can see on the right side. And also you can download SDM package. It's the species distribution modeling results, so it's not the package. So you can download the results and compare it with your data which are collected. So these are the data sets which are provided, map in QGIS, the attribute table, and the GML data set, only as pictures in this on this slide, my last slide. Some conclusions. We want to use the software at a regional scale. Because of the performance, we use programming languages like hypertext preprocessor, HTML5, and it's not a programming language, but also JavaScript. So some biologists at the NGOs which are able to program are able to change a little bit of the source code when there's a need. And we are working together with the NGO in Oldenburg, the NABU, and they are working on the awareness for standards, and we are also doing that. We want to implement the latest SDM methods so that we can make use of better control methods. What we are doing is looking for interfaces for data transfer because we want to transfer the data into a SDI, but the public authority in Lower Saxony don't want digital data, so that's our problem, but we are providing the data, so everyone can download that. Yeah, the system is in use within other projects. We are also working on the topic energy resources, the INSPIRE topic, and in marine spatial planning. And we are working with a data collection tool in a macroplastics project. So we want to collect data about drifters, and yeah, it started today, so I had to work last night a little bit on that. Yeah, thank you very much. And if there are questions.
Thanks a lot, Christian. So, any question for Christian? Yeah, it's me actually.
Thank you. Just at the start of your talk, you mentioned these. You referred to these sort of casual citizen scientists and the professional citizen scientists, these groups. And I was wondering if these two groups, are they actually measuring the same things for you? And if so, have you done some comparison of the quality and the information that you're getting from these sort of non-experts, let's say, versus the experts?
No, we are not really analyzing the quality. If we not me, but with the system, the experts, and the experts are the real volunteers, the experts from the NGOs, and they are therefore ensuring the quality. So if they say the location of this species, which was found by volunteers or citizen scientists, like is okay, then it should be okay, I think. So we don't really believe in the species distribution model alone, but maybe in the future it could be better.
Okay, Jean, you want to say?
Yeah, one of the citizens' observatories proposed in Ground Truth is something about phenology. Do you think that with this kind of data you can do something about appearance and disappearance when you see the first of those species, this kind of stuff that is related with phenology somehow? How precise is that?
I think the data are precise when in the end the expert has to say that the data are okay. So I think we can do much to fulfill the requirements of the data specification with many of the attributes, but the location of the measurement or whatever, or of the species which was found, it has to be evaluated by experts in the end. So, yeah. So but I think it's more important to provide a tool which does the most of the work. So the NGOs are not able to produce a species distribution data set following the requirements of INSPIRE with their own GISs, so they don't have knowledge in GIS. Only some of the people, but most of the NGOs in the regional scale. Sometimes they are using QGIS and or others, and they are happy when they see the map on the screen. Sorry, but they are not really good in analysis very often.
Okay, thank you. I think we have to proceed because we are a bit delayed. So I would like now to introduce Andrej Abramic from the University of Las Palmas de Gran Canaria, who will present the INSPIRE harmonized database of the citizen science project called POSEIDON, which is about sighting of marine species, if I'm correct. So the floor is yours.
Correct. Okay. I will briefly show you our citizen science project and how we actually applied inspired data management and why. So we have a program POSEIDON. It's actually, you can find it in this URL. So it's a citizen science that deals with marine biodiversity. It was founded by Fundación Biodiversidad 2014 and 2015, and actually it deals with the marine species, and the citizens, actually the target groups who are participating, are reporting the species with providing the location, local name or the common name, and they can also upload the photo. So when actually the citizens are providing this information, we have an expert biologist who actually validated this result. No? If actually this is the species what we are talking about, or even if the citizens who provided couldn't know what is actually the species. So the goal was to obtain marine biodiversity data, and within the citizen collaboration, increasing the awareness on the biodiversity issues. So I will just briefly show you how it looks, the interface. It's a very simple one. You provide where actually the sighting was on the map. You provide the date, and then you actually try to identify the species, the group, and it's quite simple. So then the other thing what actually registered user they can do the query. They can see actually where some species are observed, where you can see it. And for some species which are protected, we are actually in this system not providing the exact location. The exact location is still in our system. It is there, but as this is a protected species or commercially possibly used species, we are just saying, okay, it was identified on this island and it's identified that many times. When you actually touch, you see you get the location, you get the name of the species, and you get the subgroup and the group. This is actually one of the species that our experts didn't recognize, so we just have a photo, we don't know what is it. So the current results, actually the project was financed 2014, 2015, but the project is still running. It's still there, the system is there, and we are getting every day, or let's say every month, new records, but intensity, it's decreasing. We need kind of the new push. Before we get the campaigns in 2014, 2015, where we want to involve the target citizens groups, and these are the scuba divers and the whale watchers mostly. So before I left, I just checked the results, and we have more than 7,000 samples. 6,942 are validated, and 3,100 are actually with the photos. So we have a 400 registered users, and we believe that this is quite a good result. And I would say that if we have 3,119 photos, these are all the photos which are actually done under the water. Most of them are done under the water, then uploaded in the computer, and then uploaded in the system. And there is not so many people who want to do it, to be honest. No? So it's difficult to involve the people. But we get a quite good response, and we are quite happy. We believe that this system, this citizen science project that we can reuse for something else, we are still thinking where to put it in which call. We want to do something with this. We are not exactly sure now. So we put it Inspire Data Management inside. Why? Actually, this project does not have any legal or project requirement to do it so. One of the reasons is actually because my institute is a big producer of the environmental data. So we want to share this data, we are always sharing it, and the idea was to be part of the Inspire Data infrastructure and actually to increase our visibility and possibility to actually discover our data. We strictly see SDI and Inspire Data Management as a tool. This is not a part of our research. We are not geoscientists. We do things with the environment, we do lots of things, but this is not part actually of there. But the main motivation for this, including the Inspire Data Management, actually because we want to use it in our next projects. In international projects, when we have to develop the data flows, so we want to increase the efficiency. We want to see what actually from Inspire we can actually use it, even we do not have to do it. But we want to see what is actually the part which will help us to deliver our project. So one of the first idea is to use open source free of charge software. We don't if we actually ask our partners to increase the efficiency, to start to be part of special data infrastructure, we don't want to ask them to buy expensive software, because for the project where we want, this is not actually put it in the budget, and these kind of things are strict. So we want to understand exactly, we want to understand metadata development and the management of data, how we can use data harmonization, development of the internet services, of course, discovery, view, and the download. So when it comes to the part of data harmonization, actually, we have all our database in MA School. We also manage data in a simple shape because people sometimes actually like this format. So we decided to transform all the data with quite good tool. It's a Humboldt alignment editor called also Hail. And also we used a lot of tools which are available on Inspire website. This is the interactive data specification guidelines, HTML, UML view in the HTML, application schemas. This is all, there are lots of tools there available which are actually quite useful. So we identified the model, and the model is a species distribution, the same model which was mentioned before. It's quite simple. It actually, the must is to provide Inspire ID, the geometry, and actually species classification. For the species classification, exactly like in the previous presentation, it has to be used EU nomen, UNIS, or nature-directed codes. So when we want to see what is the transformation it's quite simple. It's one-to-one. We just took it from the database of the Poseidon, and we just transform it in an Inspire conformant file. It's a quite simple transformation. We rename, we send new properties, we don't change the geometry stays the same. So this is how it looks on the Hail, but actually it's not that complicated. It's quite very simple. The tricky part could be, but we were lucky actually, the tricky part is the mapping. Mapping the R species name, which we have it in our database, with EU nomen code list. So we mapped 414 species, but the fantastic thing is that EU nomen, or Pan-European Species Directories Infrastructure, has an online mapping tool. So we were really happy that we actually could put it inside of it, and then this online mapping tool actually mapped about 80% of our data. If it didn't happen like this, probably this transformation, which I needed 1 day to do it, this would last for 4 or 5 or even maybe 2 weeks to map this. So we applied, which architecture applied? We were thinking, okay, this is a dynamic data set, which is updated monthly or weekly or daily. But we were thinking, is there actually need that this data set all the time has to be updated for each data? And we were seeing what we will get with on-off transformation or on the fly. And we certainly said, okay, we're going for the on-off transformation. Hail, it's quite good supporting this task. So we really think that on-off transformation provide a better performance. It actually provides wider choice of software components. Even it duplicate or triplicate our database, which is stayed. This doesn't matter within the storage, but maybe okay within the management. But okay, I think it's not an issue. We use the GeoServer for developing the view and the download services. So the first idea, what we wanted to do, actually, we wanted to transform the shapefile to the Hail, within the Hail, and then transform it to the Inspire compliant shapefile. And we really believe that this is possible, and it's really easy to plane the model. It's not a complicated thing. But where is the problem? The problem is that shape, or DBF, the part of the shapefile, do not support the name of the attribute which has more than 10 characters. This is the only problem with the shape. So then we had to do more complicated solution because we wanted to just this shapefile serve with the GeoServer, which is a quite simple task. Then we have to include the PostGIS. So this is another database that we have to manage. And this actually make this thing more complex. And this is not something that we really want to have more complex system and more databases to manage. So within the PostGIS, we didn't have a problem to share GML files or to serve complex, the plain file or actually complex file. This was not the problem. So then we had to do the discovery service, and I think this is a very important part because, okay, development of metadata is a quite simple task. Even what we find out when you do it with a metadata editor which is available, actually it doesn't include reference system code, and this is a very important part in the metadata. No? This problem it resolves European open source metadata editor EOSME, so actually it provides. Then when we developed the metadata, we made our catalog, and then we fall down. Then we fall down. This is still in the progress. We didn't resolve this. We were actually getting a very good support from Instituto Geográfico Nacional from Spain. But actually, we didn't find where's the. We resolved some issues, but still, the Spanish metadata infrastructure cannot harvest our catalog. And this is the only thing where we failed. And I think it's very important because still we cannot be discovered. We are still on our website, and this is, if you don't know it, you will not find it. So I will just now finalize with the conclusion, but you have to take in mind that these conclusions is for us primarily, because these conclusions actually are coming why or what part of inspired data management we are going to use in our project. So the first part of regarding the data harmonization, we have lots of tools. The Hail, it's a fantastic tool. We believe this is a really good tool, and you can really work with it, and the tools are available. The second thing, we believe if somebody who didn't have been familiar within the data models, within the UML, within data specific, within the Inspire, I believe that this is a quite time-consuming task. There's really lots of time need to understand what to be done and how. I really didn't have a problem because I was really working on it for a long time, and I actually done it in one day. But if somebody has to start from the beginning, it really will be time-consuming. So also we find out that planning inspired data models is a quite good solution. And it's a quite good solution for the partners because our partners are biologists, our partners are people who are doing environmental monitoring, and sometimes they don't have actually geo support. The geo support is actually a GIS expert who is making the map and analysis, and we cannot expect from them to provide inspired compliant files. And what actually they would really easy understand is Inspire plain data model. Because if we go to another way, we really have to provide extensive support, and this actually can jeopardize our project in development. Regarding the network services, also there is a quite available number of tools. Of no cost, we use the GeoNetwork and GeoServer. We see that it's quite simple to serve view network services, and we also find that it's quite complicated to, let's say, to complicate. It's a complex, let's say better. It's a quite complex to serve inspired compliant web feature service. And mostly because you have to include the PostGIS database, at least in our case. Maybe somebody has a better solution. But I believe that including this database, which only is a kind of a transformation system, kind of transitional database, actually decrease the robustness of our system. It's one element more, and I don't see the usefulness of it. Also, we find actually it's easy to serve web feature service for Inspire-like data. So I'm talking about, again, about these shape files, which are actually having all the attributes as inspired data model. They're plain, they're quite understandable, but they just doesn't have this attributes name as should be. So this is something that we can use it in the project, and then when we have it, when we get the data from our partners, we can always transform it in Inspire compliant file, which is fully compliant. We find it out that actually download services are a quite fantastic thing for the extremely useful in the project that we are usually working, because we have all the time, every time, in each moment we have updated data, and this is something very interesting for us. Also, we find the data service metadata management could be very useful if we have lots of data set. And also, I believe that actually discovery service should be part of the project dissemination process. It's quite important. If you develop the project that actually this project and these results and this special data or the data could be found somewhere. So thank you for your attention, and this is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrej. Any questions from the floor? Yeah, I see two. I was not sure who was first, but okay, Sanasia, please.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I understand that there are experts involved in this process, meaning that they need to somehow classify and verify the input from citizens, and mention, for instance, which species we are seeing in the photograph. How have you sourced these experts? Are they member of the consortium? Can someone else that knows about the project be registered as an expert and do this task? And how have you motivated them?
This is not a big project. I cannot remember exactly because I was not there when this project started, but it's a small project. And the experts who are actually validating the results are the colleague who is sitting in front of my desk, and the other one, and the other one. So it could be time-consuming work for them, because sometimes they cannot easily understand which species is it, or sometimes really comes lots of data, because I don't know, some scuba diver group comes and everybody has a camera, and then in the one day there's a 200, 300 data to pass. But also they like to do it because sometimes they find something they don't know what is it, like the small animal what we showed you before. So these are the people from the work research institute or from the university where we are working, and actually it's kind of the voluntary work. Sometimes a voluntary, sometimes maybe paid with a small contract, but biologists too.
I think Jamal.
Yeah, my question was more or less in the similar. I think that's a bottleneck of your approach, because imagine that it's too successful, and then you have lots of data, which is the time between the people upload the data and they provide and they get some feedback. They can get bored if they cannot receive the feedback in a relatively short time, and
yes.
maybe they decided not to contribute anymore. So how you think you could solve this in case this is upscaled in a larger, in a real citizen science system in which you can have hundreds of inputs every day?
Okay, you're right that this is the bottleneck, and this is the also when we find out that we need to revive this project, do something with it, because actually, as I said, this is a time-consuming. Colleagues are doing this recognition, and sometimes it's difficult to ask a kind of favor or to be involved in something that actually is not, it's living, but. And the other thing, what you say, yeah, of course, I didn't, thank you for mentioning. When actually the species is validated, the user, registered user, get an email that the species, that report which he provides that this species is validated. You've been asking me this, no?
How long does it take usually on average?
It depends about when the. It's changing. If somebody has a small contract, this will go very fast. If we are doing voluntary work between the biologists who are there, and then it could be longer. So it could be less than 1 week. It could be 1 month, to be honest. And this is actually a very, very important question what you put it on.
Thank you. Any other question? If not, I would like just to mention, I like a lot when you mentioned that, well, you are not actually required to implement Inspire, that you wanted to do it because you think that actually it open up opportunities for collaborating with other partners across Europe, and I think that's a good thing. That's a good message to pass. It's not only Inspire as an obligation, as a burden that we have all to do because there's a directive, but it's actually as a tool, as a means for opening up opportunities for collaborating and creating new projects and ultimately products. So thanks a lot, Andrej. I would like now to introduce Ian MacCallum from EASA, who will present one of the second round of projects on citizens observatories, which is called Landsense, which, as you may imagine from the title, it deals with land use and land cover. So, Ian, the floor is yours.
Thank you. We'll run through the whole program. Okay, here we go. Great, thanks very much. Thank you, Jose Miguel, and good afternoon, everybody. Yes, I'm representing the Landsense Citizen Science Observatory, which is actually kicked off yesterday and today. So we're just starting now in Luxembourg, in Austria, just south of Vienna. Steffen Fritz from EASA is the PI, so EASA, where I'm representing today, is the lead on this, and then we have an additional 16 partners. So it'll be, so unfortunately I'm not there, but I'm also very happy to be here. We had a very interesting last 2 days, and thanks to colleagues here who organized very good meetings, very constructive, I think, with the pioneering observatories and now the newly starting observatory. So how we can harmonize efforts in the new ones, but also pick up on all of the lessons learned and good work done on the pioneering round. So I'm very happy to be here to follow all of that. So just very briefly, the consortium, we have this total of 17 partners, quite well represented across Europe, and as many of the new observatories, also a good spread, I think, between research institutes, business, also a very strong focus on businesses, also NGOs and public bodies participating, which is very important. And we also have the European Citizen Science Association involved directly in our project, which is also very important, we think, especially for outreach, but to also be really in line with the community as well. So just briefly, the aim of Landsense is to build this innovative citizen observatory. We're focusing in the field of land use change. We want to both actively collect data through citizens, but also passively from authoritative open access and other citizen-based initiatives, integrating those into an open platform, as we've been hearing here today and previously. One of our main focuses, of course, is to quality assure this data, and as I mentioned, providing it then in a format that's digestible for SMEs, larger businesses, and so forth. It's also very, very important. There we go. So just very briefly, the need for Landsense, actually, as we know, I think in this room, Earth observation is playing a very critical role in particular for land monitoring, especially through Copernicus and all of the new Sentinel products coming. But they lack in many cases, and this is across many sectors, there's a lack of sufficient ground information, ground level in situ data for validating these products, for developing accurate products, and it's really become a problem. That's why we got into actually citizen science already 6, 7, 8 years ago at EASA, in particular to address that issue that we were having real difficulty in working with a lot of these satellite-derived products, and so we wanted more information on the in situ side. Also, there's a large cost factor in collecting in situ information, in particular this land use cover area frame survey, Lucas, costs in particular approximately 10 million euros every time it's done, every 3 years.
So there is also some opportunity there to complement those efforts and perhaps reduce some costs. Looking at national mapping agencies in France, for instance, they estimate annual surveying costs on the order of 20 million per year. So there are some very, very large costs, of course, involved in land use monitoring. So we have these very broad objectives. We are going to, of course, start with a very quick assessment of the current practices, but moving then into building this Landsense engagement platform. Efforts have already started on that, I believe, even in the last 2 days in Vienna. Delivering then 4 land use, land cover change services, demonstrating then the quality and confidence of this data. That's a very important effort that we want to have, and of course then the promotion of this data and the uptake of this information. So we're going to be building essentially this Landsense engagement platform, which you see here. At the core of that, then a lot of different products and information that we have already at hand. That's also another advantage of this consortium, I think. So mobile applications, for instance, gaming, various types of crowdfunding, linked social media, of course, but then finally producing these 4 services, this Landsense, farmland, change detection, and quality assurance. And so I'll just touch briefly on these 4 services. This Landsense campaigner, first of all, it's a comprehensive visualization and mapping service that builds upon these 2 large efforts that we have had at both at IASA with the GeoWiki and at Synergize with Geopedia. And I would encourage you to maybe have a look at these. There's not really time to go into depth, but we currently on GeoWiki, we have about 10,000 registered users. As I said, that's been established around 2009 or so. We have currently we have one campaign that's running, actually, in particular, focusing on cropland, and also several sort of gamified efforts, which are running on there as well. So please have a look at that if you're interested. Geopedia also, they have about 18,000 registered users on there. They are providing a lot of web-based GIS remote sensing tools there. It's very impressive what they've done. So we're going to be really trying to harmonize these kind of existing products to really bring things forward and make it much easier for people to work with all of this information, ingesting all of this citizen science. In addition, another service, farmland support, again building on existing tools through Synergize and other partners in the project on precision agriculture, dealing with food security and so forth. We have also this change detector, which will focus on, in particular, deforestation, so hotspot detection, and we have already numerous ideas and beta versions. As I mentioned, one of the games that we actually have running on GeoWiki is actually dealing with that. This is called Picture Pile, the bottom image there, where we simply provide images to people asking if they see tree loss over time, and then we further refine this in further steps. But these are very sort of simple gamification tools that we have available that already attract a large community, but we want to then open this up further with some of the other partners here, some of the NGOs, BirdLife, for instance, WWF, and others who can help us, I think, really with the outreach. Finally, then we also are planning to take up some of the efforts that were done in Cobweb on the quality assurance and control side, so that would be sort of a fourth service that is going to occur within Landsense. So there will be then, all of these services will then be tested across these demonstration cases, and there are sort of 3 main themes there. These are happening in several countries across Europe, and also Indonesia actually is also one further test case for the deforestation hotspot detection actually. So we'll be looking at monitoring urban and rural landscape changes, monitoring agricultural land use, and habitat and forest monitoring. So these are the impacts that we're aiming for. Of course, as I mentioned earlier on, a reduction hopefully in some of the costs of in situ data collection. That has to be weighed then against the quality, and that is of course very important to check. Empowering citizens through this various range of activities that we have planned, enhancing the implementation of local and global policy objectives, fostering this innovation community, and increasing Europe's role on the business end. And that's also something that we've heard from the business community, that it's just right now, a lot of this data, especially in situ data in general, but citizen science data in particular, is too unreliable. It's not really something that the business community can can rely on right now to start building products on top of. So that's something also that we're going to address. So we're of course doing a data management plan. I don't need to get into the details on this, but that's all just starting now over the next 6 months. But mentioned several times in the proposal, of course, is this compliance with Inspire, which will be considered. And I think, that's one of the benefits of being here now. Also, we're exploring how we can do that. But I think I have been talking to some of the Inspire folks, so that clearly should also be happening through the land use, land cover theme in particular. Essentially we plan to pick up on a lot of the good efforts that were done already in the pioneering observatories and build upon that. So I think I want to stop there. We have, as I said, it's just getting started, so I'm looking forward to being able to present some results from this in the not too distant future. Landsense.eu is the webpage. You can actually register and receive some email newsletter if you're particularly interested in this theme. And I stop there and take any questions. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot, Ian. So, any question? Okay.
Thank you for your presentation. I was wondering, currently we are working in a consortium to make a database for Africa and the Near East related to agriculture. It's based on satellite imagery and to update every week. And one of the things we will do is, one of the data components is land cover. And we really need to validate the results we are going to create in the next year. My question is, based on your experience, I mean, you just started, but you already have 4 years experience, I guess. Could you recommend me to use a citizen science approach in this case? I mean, the area is really all of Africa, so it's quite a large area. But still, is it maybe because it is so large, you could recommend a citizen science approach. So can you reflect a little bit on that?
Yes. I would definitely recommend that. We have also, that was one of the earlier efforts that we did. We were working on an African cropland data set, in particular, African-wide. Also then finally land cover in general. So we've done quite a few efforts of harmonizing existing data sets. So this is one step to go to try to also get national products, and then merge those with some of the existing global data sets that we have. But finally, this additional data set that you can get from citizen science is very useful. And we have various tools and campaigns where we need people to go on the ground, which then gets more difficult if you're covering very large areas and in difficult places to access. But we have also many tools set up which work online, and so then you were presented then as a citizen or as a member of this GeoWiki group. You're presented imagery online, and you're asked to basically select based on different questions what you see there and the various types of information. So it's I would suggest it's quite a good way of doing it. For instance, with this GeoWiki platform, we have these sort of 10,000 registered users, and so when we launch these campaigns, we get generally quite a large amount of interest back on that, and we're able to collect information rather quickly and also with reasonable accuracy. Yeah.
Great, that sounds fantastic. Okay.
Hello, Stefan Adl, my name from Statistical Office in Germany. I was wondering, when you talk about harmonization of land cover information within this context, what, if and which role does the Eagle data model play in your project Constellation?
Yes, I think I heard you ask a similar question yesterday or along these lines, and yes, it plays a prominent role in Landsense actually. So the Umweltbundesamt is a partner in the project from Austria, Gebhard Banco, you might be aware of him. So we have several colleagues who are aware of the Eagle model, and as I understand, that's probably the direction we're going in Landsense. So, yeah.
Great. Any other question? No? Yeah.
Just I'm curious because there is always this confusion between land use and land cover. Actually, I have to blame ourselves because here in Catalonia we have a land cover map that is actually on land use. How much land use is and how much land cover is? Because you started with the Copernicus stuff and so on, so this is definitely covered. So, you know, can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes, yeah, I probably don't want to get into the definitions too much of that, but I think one aspect of that, and maybe the confusion, is the temporal aspect, so the change over time. And that's something that is very important that we're dealing with in Landsense. You know, it's one thing to just have a snapshot of in situ data, but you actually need to keep having that over time, and that's sort of this land use change aspect somehow as it's evolving. And this is very expensive and very time-consuming to maintain this data collection. But to distinguish between the two, yes, it's there's yeah. I mean, land cover is kind of typically maybe land use being the anthropogenic sort of aspect on that. Maybe that's the simplest way to define it here, to separate distinguish the two.
Oh. Okay, as you know, land use or land cover change is extremely dependent on the number of the thematic accuracy, the number of categories you are able to detect. How many categories are you commonly detecting and considering in Landsense?
Very good point. Yeah, I mean, in Landsense, that will all be kind of open for discussion. But in the previous work that we've done with citizens, we use very often a simplified legend. So we really do simplify it, and we're kind of on the order of 10 classes or something like this for land cover. Yeah, so we kind of can go that far, but we of course then run into the real difficulty is cropland with citizens, differences between pasture and agricultural land. It starts to get very difficult. So we get a lot of questions back from that. So we have this one campaign right now, and constantly on Facebook people are asking, what is this? I don't see the difference. And yeah.
Okay, thank you very much,
okay,
Ian.
Thank you.
I think we need to go to the next presentation. We'll have two presentations on the same project, but from a different point of view, I understand. So the first one is by Arne Berre from Sintef, who will introduce citizens, and I understand you will focus more on the citizen toolbox, citizen observatory toolbox that they have, that Citizen project has developed in the last 4 years.
Thank you, Jose Miguel, and everyone else here for staying in the late session. I'm happy to present now one of the 5 what's called the pioneering Citizens Observatory projects, Citizens focusing on air quality, and the part of the project dealing with the technologies and the collection of data. And the next presentation will talk a bit more on this from a user point of view related to the goals and ambitions. So it is a project that has focused a lot on using sensors to collect air quality data, but also to use humans. So humans as a sensor, and doing pilot cases in 9 different cities, which you see the names of the cities here. And it's a 4-year project that is finishing now this week, so end of September, and has also some participation outside of Europe. The way we are structuring the result from a software technology point of view now at the end of the project is through what we call the Citizens Observatory Toolbox, and it contains the areas that you see kind of in the flower to the right here, and it's described in our webpage, co.citizens.eu. I will now in this presentation go through all of these areas of the Citizens Observatory Toolbox, starting with the methods, and then go around. So this is kind of your outline. We'll go through this, and we will look at some of the typical technologies that has been produced, starting with guidelines and experience reports, and also what we call the Citizens Observatory Interoperability Reference Model, which is something we have been working on together with the other Citizens Observatory projects. And then I will go through the others. So basically, through collaboration with joint meetings with the other Citizens Observatory projects, we have seen that this is a complex area that also within interoperability can be looked at from different perspectives. One is to look at it from an information value chain, from the collection of data through all of the life cycle phases. It's also interesting to look at it from interoperability from both a political, legal, organizational, and semantic interoperability point of view, where we have drawn a link to the European interoperability framework. And then we go to the technical interoperability area, where we are using the different service perspective of the ISO 19119. In addition to this, we have non-functional aspects. So I'll not go into the details of all of this, just pointing out that looking at the technology, the recent ISO 19119 service architecture model talks about the different technical parts of an architecture, from boundary interactions with sensors and users, workflow for composition, processing services, data management, security and privacy, and communication. And all of these are reflected as part of the tools and the supporting technologies. So one main point to note on the platform is that we have a number of input sources on the left, a number of different sensor packages, a number of different apps, and we allow for freedom for both our own and third-party input technologies that we are harmonizing through a common platform with a special environmental data server in the middle. And then again, there is a lot of potential output formats for different kind of visualizations, different kind of analysis and usage. On top, we see a little bit of the life cycle phase that I referred to basically on the top here. This is actually the Inspire value chain, which is useful since it's an Inspire conference. And those that are looking into the Inspire would see some of these publish, discovery, observe activities that is part of the Inspire life cycle. So this is more a technology point of view, showing some of the particular left-hand technologies of sensors. The technologies for the spatial environmental database is based on WFS, one of the OGC standards. And then there is a lot of output formats here, XML, JSON, CSF, CSV, RDF, and so forth. This is a technical description or an overview of all of the technologies that has been developed. For those who would like to have an overview of all of this, it talks about different kind of sensors, static and mobile sensors, the companies behind, radon sensors, different kind of air quality sensors. So it's a reference point, but it shows the same model that all of this is going in different ways into the common database, the data server, and then we are taking it out into different kind of portals, also in different kind of data forms. So all of the technologies can be found in some of the boxes here. So that was the overall picture. And if you now look at the data that has been collected, I'll talk about going around this flower here on the data with the citizen science data model and the WFS server, and also the data handling in CSV JSON files. The data model is an interesting area that we discussed during the last 2 days in the hackathon context. We have been doing this with the other projects also, and there is an ongoing activity in OGC called the SWI for Citizen Science that we are harmonizing with. It's also related to the observation and measurement standard of OGC and ISO, and an ongoing activity that still will continue beyond this project. Basically talking about measurements linked to observations. We also generalize this to queries and answers in the surveys and questionnaire. It's stored in a WFS server, and you can then interact with that using classical WFS queries. But we also have some pre-made queries with a RESTful interface, retrieving all the observations for a certain time span in a certain area that allows us to easily get data from the system. And that gives us typically XML, but it can be also JSON, and here is a CSV structure showing some of the parameters that is the return when we ask for an air quality measurement result. So this was the data, and then we need to look at the data in different ways, not only CSV files, but we can also visualize it through portals. We have one portal we use to visualize the outdoor data with a selection on the left here to which city, which area we are looking for and which time period. And we see different kind of sensors, mobile, static, human sensors with an associated color, which is an air quality index that is calculated based on the different parts of the air quality measurements. For the indoor activities, we don't focus so much on the visual part, but it's more for students to be able to download the measured data in CSV forms or Excel form for their own analysis and work on the data itself. Actually, during the last 2 days, when we organized the hackathon here with the other pioneering as well as the new projects, we did one experiment on the interoperability of data, taking the CitiSense air quality measurements and making that available. One of the other projects from the VGI community we talked with this morning is the i4apps, took this data and then during the hackathon yesterday aggregated that into their own database and visualized it. So this is one of the school measurements to the left here with some values from our test data. We do call it test data because there are various issues of, say, quality aspects that we will talk about later. But it shows the technical interoperability that having a common reference model makes it possible to exchange this data and make it quite quickly useful among a number of different projects. Going further on this wheel, to visualize things, we need some visualization software, and we have produced a set of reusable HTML5 widgets, which means that it can be shown both in web portals and on apps. So here is a set of elements from our library of widgets, different kind of dials used to show the current state of air quality measurements, map and image maps where we can put objects and we can select and we can show the data from that. These are all, say, generic reusable elements that would be useful for new projects, not having to start from scratch, because it's based on, say, state-of-the-art technologies that will work well both in portals and for apps. Going further around, as I said initially, the sensors is a large part of this project, and we have a number of those. 5, 6 different sensor providers from the production of the sensors, electrochemical air quality sensors through different kind of packaging, as you see here, both for static and down to the left in the middle is the mobile sensors that we have been using as the second generation in the end of the project, and to the left down we see the new version that was produced just now the last few months with another complementary project. So these are being used then to collect air quality and to get the data into the server so it can be further visualized and analyzed. In addition to the technical sensors, we also have a questionnaire tool where we can ask people about their views on various things. Look at this as some kind of Google form suitable for your adaptation and showing this in apps. One of the partners, UHopper, has the Civic Flow product, which I believe also will be used in the SEND project, or at least be extended there in one of the new projects. That will help you to create a custom survey quickly. It's a bit similar to what the Cobweb is doing in their portal too. So we see there are some similar functionalities that are being produced in this project that we obviously can get some synergies around in the future. Getting now around the wheel here, we are on the top on the mobile apps. A number of mobile apps has been developed. CITI Air app is one that you can download from iTunes for Apple iPhones or from Google Play. And you see a few screenshots here. Basically, it shows a map on where you are, and you can then enter a dialogue where you can provide your subjective view of the air quality in your area, giving it a quality factor from green to red, and say something about the cause of your perspective on this. So, so that's collecting the subjective view. We have another set of apps also. Here's one doing also measurements with a mobile weather station for temperature and humidity, Also connected a microphone for doing noise, so you can look at noise pollution and take pictures and say things about the current environment with some more technical sensing as part of it. So for all of these, we are also making the underlying software available. So this is open source and can be used as starting point for new app developments. It has been developed as a customized app for their particular purposes. But what we are doing now at the end, and we'll also do beyond the project, is to generalize some of the components in such an app framework. And this was one of the discussions we had in the hackathon yesterday, how this can be kind of a library for future use. So that was basically a quick tour around this wheel, talking about the different parts and technologies as we can show them now at the end of the project. And then in the next presentation, we will say a little bit about the usage of this from more a citizens observatory end user and scientists point of view. And here are some references to the material. Okay.
Should work now. Okay, thank you, Arne. There's a huge list of applications and tools that you have developed in the project of Citizens. I'm sure you have questions for Arne. Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. You mentioned that you have an app in which it is possible that people can provide information about the personal experience related to air quality, so their subjective experience. Would you be able to correlate the subjective experience of people with so-called real data on air quality to see if there's a correlation between the experience of people and the actual air quality?
I guess that might be something Alena could answer later, because it's more, say, on the analysis of the quality of the data and the usage of it. I think we have now collected data, and it would be an interesting data set for such kind of analysis, perhaps. We haven't really focused on that. It has been more a focus on collecting whatever input the citizens would provide. And we have the data collection now, and I think this is a very relevant question that might be relevant for our data set and also might be relevant for further studies in the future.
Any other question for Anne? Yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay. Now or?
The answer is no. Well, maybe I should elaborate. There has been studies that were trying to correlate the perception data with objectively measured air quality. Now, obviously, perception is more than just the objective status, right? So, what it can do, this perception, is, for example, we have these 8 cities, and we can look at and we have the same time periods. So we can look at, is the perception different in the different cities? And if yes, as we know that yes, but we are in the middle of this analysis, we could use that as like substantiating the further dialogue with the city authority. Or if you have one city and you look at the time series of the observations of the perceptions, you may see that at times those perceptions change. And there may be a physical reason, for example, air pollution episode, but there may be also other aspects why that happened. Or you may have a city map, and there may be like pockets where people report differently, and it may have to do with the general quality of the area. So there is information in those perceptions, but it is not necessarily related to physical measurements of air quality, even if people provide their perception of air quality.
Thank you very much. Any question for Anne? No? Okay, I will like just to emphasize how good work has been done between collaborative work between the so-called pioneering city observatories, especially in the context of standardization. I think the the fact that you're working together in this OGC sense of enablement for citizen science is a very good sign of this, the outcome of this collaboration, which I hope it will go on after the end of the projects. So I think it's time now for Alena. Thank you again, Arne. From Alena Bartonova from the Norwegian Institute for Air Research, who will also speak about citizens, but I think more about how to match actually these measurements from citizens with the authoritative official data on air quality. So.
Thank you, Jose Miguel.
Yeah, there, yeah, exactly.
Indeed, I was trying to get another view here, but that's okay. Indeed, my name is Alena Bartonova. I seldom say that, but that's another issue. And of course, this is a presentation on behalf of the Citizens Consortium. As you heard, we had these 9 cities involved in Scotland, in the Czech Republic, in Austria, in Slovenia, Serbia, Israel, here in Barcelona not least, Vitoria-Gasteiz in Basque Country, not far away, and in Oslo. You have heard about that, and there has been quite a large consortium behind this of at some point 30 partners, 15 associated SMEs, either through third party or directly in the consortium, 4 universities, and the rest is RTOs and 1 NGO. Well, okay, our coverage is Europe, and we are covering 9 cities, and we have collected a large number of observations through the techniques that you have heard. But the point here is that the decision makers in those cities are actually our final customer, right? So all the cities have been involving themselves with the city administrations in their areas. And this is the last you hear about that, because I will not concentrate on this aspect, but really on the people that have been involved. Well, a little more on the technologies. At some point we had running the largest network in the world of air quality sensors, 324 sensors across all the cities. I'm sure this will be soon surpassed, but until now this is the record. We have been engaging a number of people. And of course, it is relatively simple to engage schools or educational institutions. So we had large activities in 1 university. We involved actually not 12, but 14 secondary schools, 5 elementary schools. We had 51 kindergartens. We had 9 tenant associations. We had at the moment, we have about 1,200 city air app users active at this moment with active app download or installation, I should say. And we have collected more than 1,000 answers to user questionnaire. Actually, I think it's nearing 2,000, but I don't have really the exact numbers. And we had a lot of volunteers across the 8 locations that employed the air quality sensors. We have about 200 or more volunteers, and in the public spaces we had 50 people. So those were our representatives of the public. Why air pollution? Well, clearly we know that air pollution kind of is harmful, but of course we know that there is, or I as a scientist know that there is a lot of information about air pollution, so there is actually quite a large initial offer of information that is actually publicly available. And in Oslo, for example, we have quite a nice portal called luftkvalitet.info that provides all kinds of things. Problem is that public does not know about this. These portals are made for the decision makers, for the authorities, and they are really not visited by the public. The public is, of course, the main stakeholder, because if you do anything on air quality, in the end, the public will have to do it. They will have to comply with your measures, reduce speed, pay toll, whatever, right? So how can we engage them in the issue? And who are they? And why should they be engaged? What is their motivation? Is it for themselves, or is it because they are interested in the society? what is interesting for them, and when we know that, how do we operationalize this? And in the picture here, you can see that we have an additional problem in air quality, and that is that we have a large number of technologies, and this is only the in situ technologies, right? We also have satellite technologies and all kinds of things, right? And we also have these little sensors, and how do we then compare the data collected from these different technologies? And this is a real scientific issue that actually we haven't really solved, and it will take some time to get the proper framework for this. So the main part of the studies was based on two types of sensors, the static sensors here and the portable sensors that you can see here with all the volunteers and installations. This is, again, so-called low-cost sensor-based platforms. Low-cost meaning that the individual sensor is for, let's say, 10, 50, 100 euros, but the whole platform would be for like 2,500, okay? So low-cost is and of course, on top of that, you need to have communication in place, so there is additional costs. So the costs of the physical measurement instrument is really only a very small part of the total investment and operational costs, not least. Anyway, we need to know who are our people, and as you can see here, maybe to some extent, we asked people what's their view on getting involved in policy making, and in Oslo, how would they like to do that? And in Oslo, people basically chose via public surveys or through being involved in the elections or through citizens groups, and only 1% said something else, and 2% said that citizens really should not be involved. When you ask people about their interest in air quality, most people are quite interested, only very few are actually not. But of course, these are people, there is for sure bias compared to normal population, like average population. This is not a targeted survey, this is people we managed to engage in the project. So these are our concrete users. Does it affect your health? Most people believe a lot, a little. Only some people say not at all, and I would say lucky them. And it's perfectly possible, it may be like that. So what we were trying to figure out what would they like to know, and Arne has already shown a similar map. So we have developed a visualization portal where we are trying to make put all this information that we collect and hopefully also some information that comes from other sources into one place so that you can play with it, see what is the differences, how does it look like. But of course, individual sensor measurement is a tricky proposition, but if you have many, then you can do a few things. And here you have a map of Oslo, where this is 1 day, 24 hours, hourly simulation, and this is like January the 16th or something like that this year. This map is based on a combination of a base map that gives you like an annual average and the concrete measurements from the sensor network, which at that point was about 20 sensors. So this map can actually, you can clearly see now that this was like the morning rush, and then you can see the afternoon rush, and you can see where in the city is the pollution, how high. So this map can be a basis for a number of additional products that actually may be useful for both the people involved in the project and possibly the decision makers. On the Leo platform, people get the information how they move through the city, and they can see what was the pollution, relatively speaking. The city air app is kind of like allowing you to express your view, and of course if you are mad and if you are in traffic, maybe your perception will be affected by that, which is one of the reasons why it's difficult to correlate perception with physical measurements. The school students, this was in every place where we had 4 cities where we were trying to involve the schools, and this was very popular, and it is actually in a sense, relatively easy because you have a school year and you can target the curriculum and really participate in the curriculum. At the same time, it's very tricky because you have a window in which you can be in the school, and if you don't use that window, then you are you have to wait to next year, right? So otherwise this is a very nice group that also can help you to come up with new products or with new ideas, how they see it, what is the issue for them. We had also a number of other engagement activities through science days, different kinds of opportunities that presented themselves, not that we have created those ourselves. We also used the opportunity to get feedback on all the types of things we have been developing, asking people if they think this is useful for them, if they think it's easy to use, and so forth. And the last things I want to say to you is what we feel are the main lessons. Now, this is kind of, if you recall what Dr. Wen was saying before the break, she painted the Citizens Observatory picture as a like tripartite between, let's say, the technological offer, the citizens, and the decision-making sphere. Now, in this picture, you only see two parts, which is the technology and the citizens, really. But basically, the proposition here is that the Citizens Observatory, let's say, infrastructure, including the people, is some kind of a mediator of this offer. And which means you have to work in parallel on all the elements. You have to have an initial technological offer, and you have to make it. You have to target people and ask them what do they think. Oh, sorry. And you have to also involve the scientific community, because very often there is an important dialogue. What is scientifically sensible isn't necessarily what the public perceives as scientifically sensible or as sensible for themselves. So there is a dialogue going on between those different elements. For providing information, how do you find out what people actually really want to know? And oftentimes we neglect the sources that are already there, and we go for the new sources, and that is really a shame, because there is a lot of information, not only air quality, and of course with all these harmonizations and Inspire directive and everything, maybe this will be better utilized at some point. But then, of course, it raises the question, how do we harmonize, or how do we use together data from different sources? And there is a huge potential for a lot of scientific development. On the technologies, okay, well, technologies are very nice, and if we recall the call from which this project was awarded. This was an interesting call text because the scope was totally technological driven and the expected impacts were mostly social, right? So how do you match this in a way? So which technologies to use? Well, it's kind of fit for purpose, I think, and it is rather difficult to figure out what the fit for purpose actually is, because you don't really know what the purpose is until you have this dialogue with the people and it all goes in the same time. So on the other hand, if you are not able to define some kind of purpose, people will be very disappointed. So you really do need to have some dialogue about what do you wish to achieve. Practically speaking, all those devices, it's excellent, but in practice, it really is not so easy to get it done, because everything needs to have a SIM card, for example, and the SIM cards, of course, in 9 different countries, right? So how are you going to handle that? And these types of issues are surprisingly difficult and time-consuming to overcome. An important thing is this uncertainty of the data. You can't visualize the data, all data in the same way. The way how you present your data is really inherently affected by the uncertainty of those data. If you don't take this into account, you are totally shot and your products will have no sense. Implementing information flow requires standardization of codes. Well, of course, you know all about that. And you need to have a framework in place to support the deployment of the whole system, so to speak. What motivates the participants? Why are they actually involved? And this I think, is a question that we all will be solving in the next, until we die and everybody after us, because of course it changes in time and so forth. But for any particular installation or any particular project, you actually do need to figure that one out, otherwise it's not going to be very useful. And we have been talking about campaigns or versus long-term engagement. How does it work? Participation may differ. Of course, that's why these special groups, such as schools or patients' organizations, are so interesting, because they are there all the time. Yeah. And there, of course, has to be some kind of benefit to the user, and simple access to information that is useful to you may be one of them. Use of microsensors, in the sense, in this case, in this particular project, perhaps it allows me to see where the pollution is high and thus perhaps avoid it. And of course, if I'm a decision maker on an urban level and I have to prioritize measures and money and so forth, then some kind of dialogue with the public is undoubtedly helpful. So you can find more about this on the Citizens Observatory's CitiSense webpage. And you can download our app, and thank you for your attention.
Any question for Alena? No? Sure. You.
Very nice. Dinner next.
No, I'm sure. No? Yes.
Thank you. I want to ask you, you provide feedback to the users based on the sensors that you deploy. You tested the system in 9 cities. How many sensors should be deployed, and how you plan where should be deployed in order to provide, let's say, accurate measurements to the people? And what the cost of this kind of Internet of Things, let's say, network of sensors, depending to the air quality measurement stations that are already working in most of urban places?
Okay. Well, we had altogether 324 sensor units in the main campaign. Those were distributed. It was like we were moving sensors from places. So at some point we had them all distributed and deployed for like a couple of months. How do you decide where to deploy them? Well, that really depends on the case study here. The aim was to create this map, so the deployment kind of followed the normal deployment rules for air quality stations. But it depends. For example, if you have users, then they may want to have it deployed in their backyard, for example, things like that. How does this provide better information than the air quality stations? Well, it depends where you are. In Oslo, it doesn't, because in Oslo we have all kinds of tools. We have quite a dense network for such a relatively small city. We have prediction tools, we have models, so we really do know everything. However, it doesn't mean that people know that, and engaging them with the sensors is one way to kind of telling them, okay, this is what you can actually have, right? In other cities, there are surprising many cities who do not have any mapping system, or who have, maybe Ljubljana, for example, has only 2 monitoring stations for air quality, right? And the issue also is that in this system, you can see the gradients in the city, but normally if you have 2 stations and you do not have the mapping system in place, you do not see those gradients, and the sensors can then help you to really show the gradients, which are important for you if you, for example, want to avoid areas with high pollution.
Thank you. Uta Wim from UNESCO IHE. Since I was involved in Reusable, which was a sister project of Citizens,
and I was representing the social sciences there. I appreciate the comment you made about, you know, the nature of those pioneering projects being more focused on technology at the expense of the social sciences. And you have pointed out the limitations of that in the project. So what would you do differently now when you set up follow-up projects?
Well, I think it would depend on the purpose of the project, right? If I were to do this particular project again, I would be much tougher on the partners to make them use the information that there already is in much larger scale, and I would also be much tougher on them in terms of engaging with the city authorities earlier and in more extent. I think engaging with people that really depends on the purpose, and I think they did quite a good job, even if they might have had a little slow start. But we did have some very okay partners in this, and this worked very well. There was, of course, this typical problem in like interdisciplinary communication, you know, and people never listen to what the other people are saying, and then they are surprised of the results. So these are normal management issues of the project that of course, I'm sure they could always be done better.
Yeah, Alena, I would like to ask you regarding the first question. Maybe if I understood well, you mentioned that at least the cost could be about 1,000 euros per
Well, it
system
depends on the unit. The unit that Leonardo showed here on Monday, I think they claim it's about 450 euros. I haven't checked with him lately, but it has 3 sensors. But you have to, I mean, they're like technical issues, right? Because if you buy a sensor unit, the sensor provider has a portal on which you can see your data. So you are one, Jaume, okay, you buy 1 unit, you see one, okay. I buy 324 units, how do I see them one by one? So there is like the costs, and of course, Leo would not want to pay for that, right? That's not a service he's providing. So the costs are not only the costs of actually the physical unit, but the costs of communication and the costs of providing the platform and keeping the platform going. So I can't really tell you what the costs are, but I can tell you that we had a budget for the technology part, for the sensor part, including development and people, which was about 1 million. And we had a similar budget for the communication, and that budget was definitely shot totally.
Yeah, but that's my point. That imagine that the city council asks you, okay, I like very much this idea. How many sensors do I need to have a rough idea or services of air quality in my city? Because we are talking about if the numbers are like 300 sensors, the cost will be home. So
well, I think based on what we have seen now, we think that 50-60 sensors per city will give you pretty good coverage. But of course, that would really depend what the city authority would want, right? That is really, and for that, we haven't actually budgeted this, but I think that the total cost would be somewhere like, I don't know, 500,000 to start with, and then operational costs of like a couple 100,000 per year, something like that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think we need to proceed to the last presentation, which, as I said, it was not on the program, but nevertheless, they are here. Thanks, Alena, again.
Thank you. And that would be, you find yourself.
So I would like now to introduce to you the last speaker of today and the whole 3 parallel sessions, or 3 sessions on crowdsourcing. It's Andy Cobley from the University of Dundee, who is going to present one of the new citizens, the second round citizens observatories, which is called GROW. So please stay.
Okay.
Sorry, sir.
Right, well, thanks very much for staying. I know we're getting to the end of the afternoon here, and it's been quite a long day. You'll be glad to know I'll keep this quite short for 2 reasons. First of all, we haven't started the project yet, so everything we talk about here will be about planning and what we intend to do. Secondly, some of you will now be thinking about dinner a nice cup of tea or perhaps even something a bit stronger. Okay, so I'm here to represent the GROW Observatory, empowering citizens through collaborative Earth observation data and knowledge. I'm from the University of Dundee. My colleague Drew Hemnett can't be here today, but he'll be around tomorrow. What are we going to do? Okay. What we want to be building is a citizen-led observatory to measure soil moisture in around, and we hope this number is going to be right, around 15,000 locations. This is going to be the biggest observatory of soil ever done. What we did to begin with is basically we went through a design exercise looking at different types of users of the land and to see what sort of users that we could actually start to help. So we've got here some 4 personas, as we like to call them. Someone who might be in a school, a small rural farmer perhaps, a smallholder, maybe doing some growing in their back garden, perhaps someone who's a land manager who's looking after parks and so on. And here we can identify some of the issues that these people might have. So for instance, the small rural farmer might have interests of water resources, land degradation, etc. So the question is, how do we get to 15,000 sensors? As I'm sure you're all aware, sensor technology is not cheap. We've just been hearing about $400 sensors for air. Water sensors are a lot more expensive. People have tried to make them a bit cheaper, things like the Starlab sensor. There's been some moves for people to build their own sensors. It's actually not that hard to build a sensor. It's just hard to make a sensor that's accurate. So we were lucky to get involved with a company called Parrot. They build a sensor for home users called their Flower Power. You can see an example of 2 of them there. If I can get this thing on. No, I can't, never mind. So that green and brown one. These sensors cost around €100 each, so they're fairly cheap. So it's well within the realms of the project to perhaps hand out 15,000 of these. They work quite simply by you stick them in the ground, you then walk past them with your mobile phone picks up the data via Bluetooth and then transfers it to some servers somewhere. One of the problems we are going to have, and I admit it right here and now, is that all sensors are never, they drift, they're never completely accurate. How do you collaborate, make sure that they're accurate? So one of the things we will be doing is we'll be using the sensors, some high-quality sensors in some locations and perhaps move them around from place to place to try and make sure that the data that we're getting is accurate. The current network of Parrot sensors looks something like this. They're all over Europe. There's actually a large number in the US that we're not particularly interested in. These are the publicly available sensors. For obvious reasons, not everybody likes their data to go up into some cloud somewhere, possibly because of what they're growing, possibly not. But this gives us a base on which we can work to maybe be able to grow our array of sensors. I'm the technology guy in this project. I'm not really the social engineer or the designer. So this is the graph that gives me nightmares and also gives me hope. We have a number of different technologies that we are going to have to integrate. So within the GROW project, here we are, we have at least 3 different types of technology. We've got the sensor stores down here. This is currently stored in Parrot's sensor store, which is a locked box. We have a message bus here, which is provided by Hydrologic. That's written in .NET, which is completely different to this sensor store. Thingful are going to be providing some indexing for us, taking data out of the sensor store and putting it into this message bus. And this is where the problems start to arise. We haven't yet, because we haven't started, worked out whether or not at least these 3 things can talk to each other. I was heartened this morning to listen to Sergey talking about agile development, and this is certainly the way that we're going to go forward. Our plan is, from the beginning of November, is to run 3 weeks of essentially hackathons with all partners involved. And at the end of that 3 weeks, spread over November, December and January, we hope to have what we call an alpha platform. The alpha platform is a simple demonstrator that demonstrates that these 3 things can talk to each other. We can get data out of here, we can get data out to the outside world. By the end of month 3, we hope to have a minimal viable product. That is something that will not just integrate this, but will be something that we can start to provide to the end user. Other things we need to bring in here, these will probably be in the minimal viable product, are things like GEOS data mixed in with this. And most importantly, this thing called the soil testing kit, which doesn't yet exist. Although our project hasn't started, we have a science working group who are working on the sort of things that we think that citizen scientists can do with soil. I'm very interested that recently on Twitter I noticed a hashtag, which is perhaps a little rude, but it's actually a hashtag soil your undies. And this is for citizen scientists to take cotton underwear, put it in the ground and measure the decay of that cotton underwear. And the decay of the cotton underwear tells you how actually rich your soil is, and so on. So this is I'm not suggesting that we will do that, we might. So that might be something that we have in this soil testing kit. So some of our challenges we still have is how are we going to integrate this into the rest of this? How are we going to let our citizen scientists run these tests and then get data in that's going to be validated and actually useful for us? Okay, so some key points. We want to increase the number of soil moisture measurement sites in Europe up to 15,000. We want to allow European growers and small-scale farmers, we want to empower them with new collaborative knowledge. So we want these growers and farmers not just to have access to their own data, but to have access to aggregated data about their area that they live in. Now notice I say aggregated data. We're very well aware of the privacy issues here. We don't want somebody being able to look at somebody else's data. We're also very careful that we've got a governance plan that sort of says to people that the data that they supply is their own data. They can do with it what they want. If they want to remove the data, then they can remove the data. We have a statement in there that says if you remove the raw data and it's already been aggregated, then that aggregation will continue to exist. So you can't get back to your own data. We want to develop new services using citizen-contributed soil moisture data. So if we go back to this diagram, essentially this open data API which will be the gateway to new services. That hasn't been defined yet, but I'm very interested in what I've heard about Inspire today and perhaps other open APIs that we can use. This will be available both to citizen scientists and to small SMEs to develop new products. Most importantly, we want this project to become self-sustaining with potential for possible replication in other areas such as areas of Africa. We intend to try and start a not-for-profit company that will allow this project at the end of the 3 years to develop even further. Perhaps using some of these services as income, perhaps other income models might be appropriate. This is a lovely chart that one of our graphics designers drew. This is our ambitions and our impacts. And it maps how the ambitions map onto the impacts. I'm not going to go through all this in detail. The chart will be online when these slides go up. But you can see we've got things like we want to democratize sensing by deploying an extensive range of sensor technology. We want to share data and application, big data and information, sort of IoT and Sentinel-1 data. We want to have an impact on the deployment and the marketing of uptake of the tech. We want people to be able to say, yes, I've got a sensor, yes, I've taken part, and yes, I've made a difference to things. We also want to have this data store to be open, so that if people want to develop their own sensors, their own soil sensors, they can actually contribute data as well. This is going to be a completely open platform from the input to the output. Okay, thanks very much for listening. I have a complete list of, I think it's a complete list of our partners here. You can get in touch with me, Andy Cobley, but we also now have our Twitter account. To give you an idea of the scale of the problem we've got, our Twitter account currently has about 350 followers. If we're going to reach 15,000 people, that Twitter account's going to have to grow within the next few months, perhaps 6 months to a year, to 20,000 followers. So that gives you an idea of the scale of our problem. Okay, thanks very much for listening.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Any question for Andy? Any clarification? No?
Oh, don't make it so science.
Okay. I wanted to say also something, but please.
Thanks very much for your presentation. And I know you're the technical guy, so I'll tailor my question accordingly. You mentioned that you want to use agile development methodologies, and you start up front with a 3-week hackathon, you said, etc. But having been part of the Reusable, so the pioneering project as they're now called, and having learned from that, I just wonder to what extent you're taking on board the lessons, or let me put it another way, what's the role of the various end users in your agile development phase?
Okay, so that's a really important question. So that was the reason there are at least two initial stages. We've got the alpha platform, which is literally just a technology platform showing that we can do it. The MVP, the input there, will come from the end users, the science working group that is doing this. We've already been involved in the European permaculture. I don't know what they call it. When they gather together, they don't call it a conference. They've got a nice name for it. We sent one of our partners, Naomi from IASA, I think she is. She went out there just to ask them questions about what they would like to do in the end. So the input from citizens will be via user stories. So we're taking a very agile approach. We've already got, we're using Trello to develop our user stories. That's very easy for people to understand. I mean, we'd have to do it in consultation with them. There'll have to be a slight debate about it. But we want to take that feedback back into the user stories. And then in the agile process, we'll be determining which of the user stories and which of the inputs we will take forward. And they'll be important for the MVP. The MVP, the minimal viable product, will be developed in conjunction with citizens and people who might want to take part.
Great, thanks.
Okay.
Thanks. Bruce McCormack. I've just been involved in submitting a project for European Commission funding, and for the first 6 months, and I'm picking up on a point that I think you were making, we don't want to talk technology. We talk with who is going to use this platform that we're going to end up with. And we've got to be absolutely rigorous and thorough in those 6 months,
yeah,
because that sets the basis for the next 2.5 years.
Yeah.
So it's a different approach, and I certainly believe in being user-driven. Just a comment.
Yeah. No, I agree totally. Having the users involved right from the beginning is absolutely important. There is an issue of finding the users. We already have links with the permaculture organisations, for instance. We're trying to pull people in. We haven't started yet. Our webpage is up there asking for people to come and take part in the project. So, I mean, I said our MVP will be in 3 months, But the MVP isn't the end game of the development process. The end game of the development process will be a version 1, which will probably come in, I don't know. I don't know what the timescale is, month 6 or something like that, slightly later. Yeah.
Thank you. So I have a technology question,
Okay.
but it's also related to the user aspect. We collected a lot of sensor data, as you saw, and we've been working on this sensor model. For all of these models we actually have very little focus on the metadata and the associated context information, which we now are suffering a bit from, because we do find that when we do the measurements, they are under certain conditions, in a certain setting, with certain perspectives, and when we actually didn't collect and capture that, we do lose potential value in using it afterwards. So that's a word of advice, I guess, to the new projects. Do more on the metadata strategy, planning and collection than we did.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. A sense of value is meaningless if you don't know where it is, what situation. We've got the particular problem here with these flower power sensors, and a lot of them are indoors, and that's exactly what you don't want for this project. And so we'll have to encourage our citizen scientists to be able to go out with them and take the readings, and to feed back with us constantly. I think this constant engagement with them is important. One of the things I didn't mention is that we will be using a MOOC. We're using Future Learn. We're designing that MOOC at the moment so that anyone who takes part in our project will have access to this teaching material and a community online of other people who are learning about it as well. So we can collect metadata, I hope, through that process.
Thanks a lot, Andy. Any last question, Alena? Wait.
How much resources are you using for this community engagement relatively to the total budget?
I'm afraid I can't answer that question because I don't know the answer to it. If Drew were here, he'd give you an answer. The MOOC is certainly fairly well funded, as I understand it, but I couldn't give you a proportion or an answer, I'm afraid to say.
I'm sure we will know more about GROW in the cluster workshop that we are organizing for the end of November, in which the first and the second round of projects will hopefully all present. We can discuss about strategies for engaging citizens, and also we'll speak about what are the experiences from the first projects about how to make all the platforms, sensors talking to each other in interoperability arrangements, which are practices that I think you should, at least the second projects, should learn not to repeat again and reinvent the wheel. So I think if there is no other question, I would like now to, well, first of all, Andy, thanks again, taking into account that the project has not even started, that you made the effort to come. Thanks also to you to stay here until the end. And thank again to all the presenters, a big round of applause to them because of the very, very interesting presentations. And I hope you found interesting the 3 sessions on crowdsourcing citizen science. I think we have seen that there are very nice developments. I think there is, as I was saying at the beginning this morning, there is a huge potential to use this information for complementing official and authoritative data. And I hope in future Inspire conferences we can see more presentations and more developments in this regard. So with this, I will wish you a very nice evening and hope to see you in other events very soon. Thanks.